Morning, welcome to another episode Barnsley Biker Video Diaries. Today's episode, I've been contemplating how I was going to approach today's episode, and basically I'm going to take you for a ride where I'm going to share my reflections on some recent events. I received some bad news earlier this week, which hit me like a lump of lead, completely left me deflated for 24 hours. And off the back of that, shall we say, I've been reflecting on that eternal question, the meaning of life, what is it all about? And as the weeks progressed and events have developed a little bit, I've mused on the subject, philosophized if you like, and I thought I'd share those thoughts with you. I've done a couple of videos on mental health, and at this moment in time my personal mental health needs a little bit of that there motorcycle emptiness, a little bit of that motorcycle solitude. But I am going to take you on the journey. Literally, we're going to go for a ride. I'm not quite sure where we'll end up. And along the way, as I can put into words my thoughts, my feelings, I'm going to share those with you. So, jacket, helmet, all right, let's get this out and take you on the journey. Okay, get this locked up. Where do I start? As I mentioned, I received some bad news about a week ago. News about a friend. I knew he was in hospital. I knew he was quite seriously ill, to be fair. He'd, about 4 weeks ago, had a stroke. And I'd had reasonably regular updates from a mutual friend who'd told me that he'd been taken into hospital, Ian. And Ian had told me that he was showing, about 2 weeks ago, he was showing signs of improvement. He was able to get out of bed and was sitting up and able to hold a conversation for a short period of time anyway. And I was sat, can't remember what I was doing, as I say, about a week ago, when my phone pinged and I looked down. I could see it was a message from Ian, and I picked the phone up, sort of hoping it was more news on Bulli's progress, and that he was on the road to recovery, and maybe he'd been released from hospital and was at home. Sadly, that couldn't be further from the truth. The news basically was that Mike, or Bulli as we all affectionately know him, had had a second massive stroke while in hospital, a stroke from which he'd not recovered and had sadly passed away. That news hit me like a lead weight. I have to be honest, I'd known Bulli for the best part of 30 years. So, obviously the length of our friendship had an impact on how that news hit me. But what was more, how can I put it, significant in the way that literally I was deflated. For 24 hours I couldn't process the news. Mike had only just, I think it was the day after he went into hospital, I was going to say celebrated his 55th birthday. I'm guessing he wasn't celebrating, but yeah, he was 55. He had just turned 55, which means he's 11, 12 years younger than I am. I'll be 67 next. And that made it hard to process the information. I mean, as I say, I'd known Mike nearly 30 years. He'd always been an active, he enjoyed the extreme side of sports, shall we say, skiing, snowboarding, motorcycling, which is how we sort of met, and always, while I'd known him, had enjoyed or seemed to be in a fine state of health. As far as I know, he didn't have any underlying health problems. As I say, as long as I'd known him, he'd been a fit and healthy guy. To be taken in that way, you know, it sort of brought home to me a little bit and had me reflecting, and that's what I want to. I don't want to dwell on the negativity of somebody passing. Mike will be sorely missed, but it made me reflect on how much life is but a roll of the dice. You know, what we get is but a roll of the dice. Now, Ian did ask me if I'd mind trying to get in touch with as many of our old work colleagues as possible. When I first met Mike, we were all working in the motorcycle trade. Ian was a mechanic. Mike came to work for us in sales. I think he was in our after sales clothing department to start with, but he then moved on to motorcycle sales. When he left to move on to other things, we kept in touch. So Ian had asked me to try and get in touch with as many as our old work colleagues, and also one of the activities that Mike, myself and Ian all shared for quite some number of years, we were all avid Land Rover off-road 4x4 enthusiasts, and so that's what I did. And for the next 48 hours I was trying to get in touch with as many people as I could. On the work colleague side, there was a Facebook page, there is a Facebook page that a lot of ex-members from the company that we all worked for share updates on our lives since the company ceased to exist. As for the 4x4 activities, we're still in touch with a few, so by a bit of networking we managed to put together a messenger group to share information about Mike's passing on there. So as a result of Ian asking me to get in touch with people, and as I said, this is a reflection on, or sharing my thoughts, my reflections on hearing the news. And part of the process, trying to process the information basically, was initially me reflecting on the meaning of the fragility of life. You know, for a friend to be taken in his prime, really, at 55, was hard to swallow. And I was contacting people from the two groups I'd been asked to get in touch with, and this led to me having conversations on the phone with people that wanted to talk and were contacting me to share their memories and their thoughts and the blow that it was to them. And also had conversations via the various social media platforms, text messages, messenger, etc., as we all process the news. And Mike had touched the lives. There are people that he'd worked with, people that we'd enjoyed our off-roading activities with, that now live at the four corners of the world. So the news was far-reaching as it was devastating. But during these conversations, as I said, I was reflecting on the news and the impact that the news had on me, but also it led me to start thinking about the times I'd spent with Mike. And they say, you know, quite often you'll hear people say, we're not here for a long time, so make it a good time. As I was processing the information, reflecting on the news, that's sort of what came to me. I had a lot of memories, a lot of dirt on the road there, a lot of memories. And as I was sifting, talking to people, I started sifting through photos, and more memories kept coming back. And they say the best memories usually come from when things don't quite go to plan. So I don't know how significant it is that I seem to have a lot of memories from my time of knowing Bulli, knowing Mike. I started to remember all those times sat waiting to be recovered from motorway service stations. Hartshead Moor, when he failed to make it to the Isle of Man under his own steam on the first attempt, and the fact that he'd not got his bike properly fixed for when we went to the Isle of Man the year after, and had to, I think he hired a van to take it in that year with the plan of rebuilding the engine on the island and then using it, which I think he eventually did. Sat in the motorway services after he'd burnt out his coil for the second time when we were supposed to be going to Brands Hatch. Luckily on that occasion one of our works vans was on his way back up the motorway, and we managed to arrange for him to come and effect a recovery and take Mike home. Woolly Edge services, again, I think on that occasion his fuel tap had failed and there was petrol going everywhere. And not all of the memories of me sat at the side of the road were two-wheel related. I can remember one of my near-death experiences, sharing a ride back from, I think it was a laning trip with Mike in his disco, his heavily modified disco, and we coming into Bawtry, one of his trailing arms failed, sent us out of control across 2 lanes of traffic. Luckily we missed everything, ended up parking facing in the wrong direction on the pavement on the wrong side of the road, up against the parapet of the bridge going over the river. Literally we were inches away from being in the river on the roof, I think. So another day, sat at the side of the road, thankful that we'd survived, but waiting for a recovery vehicle to come and pick us up. And all the memories came out of things going wrong. There were lots of times we shared the trials and tribulations of off-roading challenges. We shared a campfire on many occasions with friends, sat in a quarry, although one that comes to mind was the one up at Calm Quarry, where we'd built a fire pit, and for whatever reason the stone we'd used, when it got hot, decided to explode quite spectacularly. That was an interesting one. We also found some quite interesting things to burn on that fire. But again, memories, shared memories. And I think it's hard to try and take something positive out of this sort of news. But when you reflect, I think one of the things you've got to take is, I've mentioned in this conversation about we're not here for a long time, we may as well be here for a good time. Life's a journey. It's not about the destination. Life is a journey. I've taken you on a journey today, a short one, to share my thoughts and reminiscences of Mike. One of the ways I would look at it, I was once told that if you take a stone and throw it into a pond and watch the ripples as they dissipate and spread across that pond, once those ripples have all dissipated, all gone and stopped completely, the stone's forgotten. Okay, but life's a little bit the same. I've mentioned the memories that I have of Mike, and there's a lot more, you know, and the more photos I go sifting through. The time he snowboarded down Snake Pass when we went out on a late night run because we'd heard Snake Pass was closed, which we often did, so we jumped in our 4x4s and went for a drive over. Yes, good memories. And I think that's what you've got to take from something like this. You've got to make the ripples, your life has got to be about making as many and as big a series of ripples as possible. Let them spread out and touch as many other people's lives as possible. Life is about making memories. The measure of life success is not the size of your house or the car that you've got on your drive or the balance in your bank account. It's about the memories that you leave behind, and I'm sure for that reason there will be other people that have got similar stories to tell that I've not heard. I've had adventures with Mike. I've heard some of the stories of some of the things him and Ian used to get up to before I met both of them. So I'm sure Mike touched a lot of people in his life, and he's left behind a lot of memories. And I look forward to sharing some of those when we all meet up to say our final farewell. But for now, yeah. Thanks for the journey, Mike. Thanks for letting me share it with you. Okay, yeah. Probably one of the hardest videos I've wanted to make. Hopefully not too melancholy. As I say, my main message is life's short, make the most of it. I'm going to share a few photos of Mike rather than do my usual outro. All I can say is Bulli,
rest in peace, and one day maybe I'll see you again on the flip side. But until then, mate, I'll see thee.